Oh,
It's
I know where it
starting.
is.
Oh, we're broadcasted right now.
What?
Woo!
No way. Get
No
out.
way. Yeah, way. Now,
Wow.
how do I actually share this?
What? Crazy.
Uh.
Yeah.
Oh,
So we
links.
probably.
There's the link. There's the link. I'm gonna share the link
Oh goodness. Like, where are
on
you sharing
Facebook.
that at? Oh yeah, on Facebook. Let me see if.
May Hall of Dogma.
Yeah. Let me find our intro music. Hang on just a second.
I am posting the link on Hall of Dogma right now.
Oh boy. ADD Masterminds. Yeah,
I
we
just
can do
say
it.
ADD Masterminds are live.
All right. Let's see what I got. We're still there, huh?
I even queued up what our conversation would be on there.
Is that right? Nice.
All right.
So, okay. Should I play the intro music now?
Uh, just a minute. I'm gonna post this on my main page, and then we'll do this.
All right. Let me know if you can hear this.
Playing right now.
Okay. Did you hear that? No.
Hear nothing.
Well, I heard it. I was rocking out.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm not sure how I can get it to. I'm not sure I can get Hangouts to hear it, but that's okay.
That's okay. All right.
Yeah. So whenever you're ready, I can play
Okay,
the
can you do
music.
your fake intro then? Music?
I can do the real.
People are gonna hear the real thing here. It's
I,
exciting.
okay, I'm gonna do the real intro music, and it's gonna get recorded when we remix this in. Okay, you ready?
Because that's how we roll.
Because that's how we roll. We're gonna fix
Yeah.
it in post. Yeah. Here we go.
Yeah.
One. Dun 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 dun. Chicka 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 cha 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 chicka chicka
Please keep your arms inside the
chicka.
podcast at all times. I think that was the music.
ADD Masterminds.
Don't you intro or something?
Okay, so we have officially been intronated.
Intromated.
Introdonated. I don't know.
I don't know. It's introduced. Intro. Yeah. Okay. Finding. Like I always forget to do the intro, like to ask myself and my podcasting partner on my other podcast, the Wax Museum.
Yeah.
Later. But yeah, you usually introduce us, so I'll let you do that.
Okay. Hey, I'm Jeff, and this is John, and we are the ADD Masterminds. John talked about his other podcast project, the Wax Museum. I have also another podcast project, but it is a super secret, super villain podcast that no one ever hears, so you'll never know about it unless you're a super villain, in which case you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Representing.
Evil supervillain in the house. Yeah.
Whoop whoop.
Whoop, whoop.
All right. So, you ever and there's like the dude saying, "How are you guys doing tonight?"
The hype man. That's your hype guy.
Yeah, yeah. And like, what's the correct answer to that? Because I
Like,
always kind of like want to say, "I'm doing okay."
you're like, how are you guys doing tonight? I have like this painful bunion.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, but I think the correct answer is, yeah. which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, exactly. So first off, those of you who have wondered where the ADD Masterminds have been for the last 6 months or so, we have been hunkered down in our secret supervillain lair, developing plans for world domination, which we cannot tell you about, but we can hint at them nefariously. Har har har. And basically, a lot of things have gone on in the last 6 months. I don't know about you, John, but things have been really crazy, topsy-turvy in my life, and a lot of really good things going on. And we talked about them off and on. I don't think we recorded them last time we talked, though, which we should have, which is
No.
what we're fixing now. We're remedying this now. We're making this right. So we're going to actually record
Yes,
this
we are.
conversation, so we have proof that we actually do still talk and are still crazy and disjointed and ADD-ish. So
Yes.
anyways, so what's our first topic up?
Well, I actually did have the Wax Museum as a topic. It covered my other podcast, and it's a lot more political. And so we'll touch on a couple episodes ago. Actually, we did one on Harvey Weinstein. And the conversation that you and I had, that we didn't record, has really changed my outlook on things.
Oh, wow.
You mentioned a scripture. You mentioned a scripture. It's called, it's the one that states, there is no Jew nor Greek nor, right?
Right.
And the combination with that, and when I was talking to Doug about Harvey Weinstein, and now, I mean, we could be talking about a series of people that have done horrible things to women. Basically, Doug said to me, "What are you going to do about it?" And I was like, "Well, I'm gonna raise my kids so that they respect women, and raise my daughter to respect herself." And he's like, "No, what are you gonna do about it?" And Doug is really good at answering or asking those tough questions that you don't want to be asked. And he asks them of me all the time. And somehow I'm cool with that. And what I arrived at as a conclusion, I'm basically summarizing the episode, so now you guys don't have to hear it, is we need to treat people like people.
Yeah.
And knowing that every human being is made in the image of God. And if we're doing that, we are not objectifying each other.
Right.
And I would take that even another step further. I'm realizing now, with all this political discourse that's happening, I am trying to remove the word conservative and the word liberal from my vocabulary. And I mean, if there's an issue that comes up, let's talk about it. Let's talk about different points of view, but let's stop labeling people. Because when we label people, we basically apply a whole bunch of attributes to that human being, when in reality, we're all individuals with different points of view on different things.
Right, absolutely. And
anyways,
yeah, that's definitely good. And that was a big part of our conversation, was we talked about, for those of you who weren't there, which would be everybody except for me and John, we discussed about how politics is very polarizing, but when you actually get to know people, the ideas, it's very, very seldom that I will completely disagree about everything with someone. That's very rare. You know, and usually we can find some kind of common ground on something, even if it's, well, I want poor people to have more opportunities. Well, I want that too. We may disagree on the best way to make that happen, but we have to start at that common point and work from there. And same thing with race relations, with religion, with all of these things. We have to, because if you don't have those lines of communication,
And you know what's totally whack, and this is something a lot of people don't like to talk about, is with abortion, we can find common ground on that too. Because everyone agrees that there should be less abortions. It's just we disagree about whether it should even be a possibility or not.
Right.
And so
people get very caught up in that. Yeah.
And it's like, if we could work hand in hand to figure out what's causing people to be at that point where they want to have an abortion, if we could all agree to mitigate that,
Yeah.
I mean, we're still going to have that hard conversation about whether it should be an option at all. But if we reduce the amount of instances where it's people want it to be an option, I think that would be
Right, right. And the truth is
awesome.
that it's extremely rare for somebody to want to do that, and they feel like they have to, like they have no
Yeah.
choice, or whatever particular reason they use. But deep down, they, if they didn't have to, they wouldn't, because that's just not something that you go around. Oh, hey, guess what I'm going to do today? Just because I can. No, very few.
Yeah.
Only, yeah, very few
Yeah.
people would do that.
Yeah. Very few people would do that. And often there's an assumption one way or the other on both sides of the debate.
Absolutely.
you know and it's like we need to have more perspective is all I'm thinking. Yeah, it was funny. I heard a great interview with Rob Bell's son, Trace Bell, and Rob Bell was
Yeah.
interviewing him, and he was talking about, did you hear about the it was Niger? There's this widow of a guy that was killed in Niger, and Donald Trump mistreated the widow or whatever, was the big news story, right?
Right.
Well, this young man, he's 19, right?
Yeah.
He was saying, okay, but like, why did this guy die in Niger? Why are we fighting in Niger? And I'm like,
Right.
missed in the whole story. There's just that focal point, and it's like somebody died here, and no one's talking about why they died.
Why did it happen in the first place? Right. That's
Yeah.
exactly it. Nobody's asking those hard questions. They would rather polarize the situation and point fingers rather than saying, well, wait a minute, back up. Why did this even have to happen in the first place?
Yeah, so I just think that when we depoliticize things, I think we can actually think more rationally. And I
Yeah.
mean, it's the same thing with all of these sex scandals that are happening right now. Like, I don't care what political party the person belongs to, what end of the spectrum they are. Sexual harassment and sexual abuse should not happen,
Right.
but wherever we can.
Right. And again, that's another issue that people are polarized on. And but the truth is that nobody wants, well, I say nobody.
None of us want it to happen.
Yeah, nobody wants that to happen.
And we
But
got to stop accusing the other side of being okay with it, because they're not.
right. It's just we disagree on how to make that happen. So right,
Exactly.
again, we have to start at the common ground and work upwards from there. So anyways,
Absolutely. So you were talking about
it's
excellence
all good.
on the Hall of Dogma, and I really wanted to cover this on the podcast.
Yes, this is going to be a very interesting topic, and it's somewhat close to home. We well, actually, one of the things that pops up if you are a frequenter of Christian musician boards, a lot of the worship guitar um, boards and stuff on Facebook and groups and things like that. About every 2 or 3 months, somebody will post up the question of, do you really need all this stuff to be an effective worshiper? And you get a wide ranging of responses, ranging from, well, yes, you need to have, you bring your excellence, your very best to the Lord, which means you're going to drop $10,000 on a guitar setup.
Right.
And then you have other people on the other end going, you don't need any of that stuff to worship the Lord. And you can kind of argue both sides. But again, what we're going to do in this, and I guess my major objection to it was using that as an excuse to satisfy a personal want. You don't need that stuff to do
Yeah,
worship.
that's an
But
alternative mode
right, a lot
for
of
sure.
people will use that as justification, and I think that is a misapplication of that principle. Now, that I'm not saying that that is completely wrong to do. I mean, spending money on worship and gear and big churches and projectors and all that stuff, you can do that. Um, I think there's a place for it. I think that there can be a good application of it. But at the same time, I wouldn't use that as justification of it. If you want to say, well, we want to increase our production value by putting money and time and effort into the production of it, I think that's a good goal to have, because who doesn't want to have better production quality if you're, you're doing something like that. But don't, I think where I really have a problem with it is when people cross the line and say, well, and come up with a super spiritual reason for it, I guess, when in reality, it's not necessary.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I think that when we talk about bringing God our best, I think that is important. And we know what our best is. And
Right.
but it's not just one aspect of our lives that we need to bring the best of, right?
Right.
It should be mind, body, and spirit. And so you need to spiritually prepare for worship. That was something, and being a member of the worship team, that was something that I was asked by my worship pastor. It's like, so how are you with spiritually preparing each week? And I'm like, oh man, like I haven't really been doing that. And part of that is, as a bass player, I don't think too much about the spiritual impact of me standing up there playing the bass, right? But it
is important,
It is important. And, realizing that it's like, even just sitting down when I'm practicing my music and singing the words, and feeling it and wrapping my mind around what the Holy Spirit's doing through this song and praying through it and, interceding for the congregation, right? And thinking about that, right? And preparing my heart for this, because it is worship. Leading, or whether you're singing or whether you're singing backup or whether you're playing whatever instrument, right?
Right.
And so, but I think bringing your all is important. I think that if we decide that it's not important, if excellence is not important, that can also become an excuse where someone's like, well, God doesn't care what it sounds like anyways, so you just come in cold and play and it sounds like garbage, right?
Yeah, we don't want that either, and that's a very fine balance for us to do as musicians and as worshipers. We discuss it a lot. What does it look like? I mean, like, if I say, okay, I'm going to bring my best, I'm going to practice excellence in worship. What does it look like for us? What does it look like for me? You'll be pleased to know that this past week, my worship pastor, who usually plays bass, took the week off, and I played bass for the weekend. And I got some nice, pretty blisters on my fingers. So
nice. I've put photos on Twitter a couple times of like my bass blisters.
I'm looking forward to going back to playing regular guitar. It's going to be nice. So just decided, I thought I'd throw that in there. So I feel your pain. It was really, really fun, and it was really exhausting because the bass weighs like twice what my guitar weighs. So I'm like,
I haven't thought of how heavy it is.
It's heavy, and so I'm jumping around and and playing bass and slapping it, and
I have to move more. I found when I went from guitar to bass, I have to move more while I'm playing. And so it's like I have to move to feel the rhythm to play my instrument. And so it's kind of part of my style.
I've gotten a reputation on our worship team as the guy who always moves and dances when we play. So
that's great.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I guess
a lot of energy.
And I guess for me, the question of excellence is a question for me personally. For me to enforce that upon other people and shame them when they screw up is stupid. And I think that was the point that Emmanuel brought, is like, should we just lambaste? I don't know what word he used, but it was just like, should we just publicly shame the person that messed up that note or whatever? And it's like, no, you just got to move on. But I mean, clearly if someone isn't prepared, they're kind of letting the team down. and they do need to get talked to.
That
Like,
that is true. That is true, especially if they have the capability. Now, if they just are
yeah,
doing the best they can, I understand that
yeah,
not every church is going to have top shelf musicians to play on their team. I'm okay with
that's right.
that. I mean, I'm not a, on guitar, I'm not a top shelf musician by any means. So I'm crutching through some of these things too, and I'm learning and I'm getting better, but I'm going to spend the time to practice and put forth my best effort, as it were. But yeah, it's definitely a challenge, and it's going to look different. Some weeks I'm able to prepare more musically and spiritually, and that impacts the. I feel it impacts the outcome of our worship services on Sunday. Um, the more I prepare, the better it goes for me, and I would imagine the better it goes for everybody else too. Everybody else isn't worrying about, well, does he know his part? Is this going to work out okay? You know, is he really struggling? And our pastor has been very good about that. And he said, look, if you're having a bad week, just say so. And if you don't really want to play that week, if you don't feel like you can do it with the right attitude, just let me know. We'll fill it in with somebody else or something.
Yeah.
And
And part of that is having the humility to realize that, you know, it's like if I'm not bringing my A game, there's someone else who can take my place, you know? And I think
hopefully,
part of
yeah,
it too is like if I get to the point where, because I feel like the music's getting pretty good at my church. And if I ever
that's
get to the
awesome.
point where they're like, all right, we found another bass player and they're better, like I
What do you
I wouldn't
do?
worry about it. you know I mean, like, I'm doing the best I can with what I've got, and if there's a
Right.
point where I'm not what they want, I'm okay with that, and I get it. Like, I it's hard because we talk about excellence, bringing excellence, so I bring my best. But
Right.
if my best is not good enough, if I audition and I don't make the team, I need to be okay with that.
Yeah, that's hard. That's there's well, I've been on worship teams before where people wanted to play and they weren't allowed to.
Yeah.
And I felt bad for them because
Right.
musically they really couldn't do what they were being asked to do, but
Yeah.
heart-wise they were definitely there to worship and they put everything they had into it, and I felt bad for them because they were bringing their A game, and it was such that the rest of the team was good enough to the point where he wasn't going to be able to hang with them, and that I don't know. I mean, I felt bad about that. I felt bad for the guy because he really, really enjoyed it. He really wanted to,
Yeah.
and
And I think part of this
probably
too, expectations for myself are different from what my expectations of others are, right? Like, I expect myself to take those things with humility, but I don't judge people that are offended by something like that because I get it. Like, that would suck, right? And not everybody's
yeah,
capable of just shrugging that off. I like to think I could.
yeah. I just and again,
I hope if I am in that situation, I can. But I mean, part of it too is like I don't feel like my primary identity is a musician,
right.
right? I feel like there's other things I can bring to the table, and so
Isn't that kind of what we discussed that last time in that conversation that no one else was privy to? That we talked about we identify with Christ. We identify with um, as followers of the Lord first and foremost, and everything else we do is secondary to that. Everything else we are is secondary to that.
yeah,
Um, that's that's really difficult to do. It's hard to put into practice all the time when we're forced to perform in these different roles in life and we're asked to do these different things. And well, okay, yeah, I identify as this, I identify as that. um, I perform this service or this job or
yeah,
that job, and we kind of tend to identify with those things. But really, I mean, those are only temporary. Those are not who we are.
Yeah, and I think the way to get away from that is to actually just serve a role and like, no, God's put this in my hand right now, so I'm doing this right now and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And
Yep.
don't worry so much about, well, what kind of impact is this making? Because if you're continuously thinking about the impact and whether people like what you're doing and all of that, then you're wrapped up in your significance, which is actually something that will be in an episode I'll be releasing of the Wax Museum too, is
Yeah.
the quest for significance and kind of my
Oh,
struggle with that.
yeah. No, nobody wants to be told that their contribution isn't needed. Nobody wants to hear that, you know. And so
I feel
when
like
we're
we're
in a
going to hear that at
position,
some
yeah,
point though in our lives, right? That your
well,
contribution
yeah,
isn't needed.
yeah,
You know?
that's going to happen. That's at some point in your life, somebody's going to look at you and go, "Thanks, but no thanks. We don't need you." Um,
Yeah.
and how you deal with that, you know, I mean, if that's especially if it's something you're very passionate about,
Yeah.
like worship music or something like that, you know, and
Yeah.
they just look at you and go, "Sorry, you know, we don't need you."
And I'm hoping
And
I can just be like, all right, cool.
yeah, well, and I'll tell you this much, um, and part of this comes in conversations that I've had in the past. Um, a lot of that, how we deal with that, how we cope with that, is how much trust and faith we put in that God knows what He's doing. Um,
Yeah.
when I get to a point where somebody comes to me and says, "Okay, I understand you want to do this, but we don't need you to. Your contribution isn't needed." Um, it's a blow to my ego. It's a blow to my pride, and so
Yeah.
I have to look at that and go, "Okay, why why am I so upset about this? Why am I being bent
Yeah.
out of shape about this? Is it because I'm taking my eyes off of the purpose for that? Is it because I'm trying to get recognition? Is it because I'm trying to be something that I don't need to be or that I shouldn't be? Or is it just maybe it was just a, you know, hey, maybe this is just a good time and try again later, you know? I don't know. And
Yeah.
so if if we well, go ahead. Yeah, I can tell you
I
about to say something.
sorry. This is a crazy thing for me is like kind of my quest for significance wasn't so much like I wanted everybody to be like, yeah, John did something. I was more like, God, I want to please you
Right.
and I want to make an impact on this world for you. And I just felt this continuous pressure to
Yeah.
do that.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
I would get frustrated when I didn't get that role as, worship leader or, all those things. And
Right.
there just came this point where I was just like, I got to stop striving for significance and just be faithful with what God's put in my hand. And I
Yeah.
guess I didn't see it as prideful, but when I sat down with a worship pastor, he basically said that I was being prideful. And I was like, that's so weird because I was just felt like I was being underutilized. Looking
Yes.
back on it now, I'm like, maybe it was prideful. And I mean, like, if God gives me the chance to worship lead again, cool, right? Like, I loved,
Right.
selecting music and doing all that stuff. Like, I just felt like I was good at that. But like, like I like playing bass on the worship team and just trying to be a positive influence, in the
Right.
role that I'm in.
Yeah. And
Not
that's
worrying too much about having a significant role in anything. And it's like just
yeah.
went from being senior at the consulting company I work for to being basically junior at a major corporation.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm just like, I'm just going to try to make everybody's life easier. That's my job. I'm happy in this role. I like just trying to make everybody's life easier.
Yeah. It's a lot easier when you find a place where you can fit, where you can do a job that you're appreciated for and something you're good at and everything just clicks. The job I'm at right now is like that. I really enjoy it. I'm good at it. They appreciate it. It works for everybody. Everybody's happy.
Yeah,
Um,
that's awesome.
yeah, I love it. I'm really thankful for that. And that's a blessing because I've been in a lot of jobs where that wasn't the case. Um, And when we are talking about worship music and musicians and leadership, and and I'm and I'm saying this because I've been worship leader in a lot of churches, and
Yeah.
uh, just a staff musician in a lot of churches, and it's it's very difficult to switch roles. It's very difficult when you step into a position where you are under someone else's leadership and you think that's not how I would have done it, you know,
Yeah.
and you have to bite your tongue and go, okay, well, maybe that wasn't the best way to do it. Maybe they know something I don't know,
Yeah.
or maybe it's just not really that important in it. I should just blow it off. It's not a big deal. Um, and again, it's how we view ourselves, how we view our purpose, how we relate that to our self-worth, you know. um, God wants what's best for us. He wants us to succeed. He wants us to be fulfilled in our lives. He wants that for us. He wants to give us bring life to the fullest. And at the same time, he doesn't want us to be prideful about it, because it's not our effort that brings that fullness. It's his. So, anything that happens that's good to me, I boast about God doing it, because it wasn't me to start with. And the same thing is when we get in an area like a gray area, like playing music. Well, I know some really, really good musicians, and they just have natural talent for it. They just, like a fish in water. They just are
Yeah.
really, really good at it. And when they show up in a place, they just expect that things are going to go a certain way, just because they're used to that. And it would be like if I showed up at the Philharmonic and said, well, yeah, I know how to play this stuff, I can play it. And they just kind of look at me and go, no, you might get there, but you haven't been playing in the Philharmonic for the last 30 years, so you've still got a lot to learn.
Right.
Could I do it? Yes. Could I do it as well as they could? No. Could I get there? Probably. But again, that's me thinking more highly of myself than I should. And that's easy
Well,
to do.
and I think for me right now, I'm starting to realize that there is a reward in not being seen. There's a reward in
Yeah.
not being noticed. And I'm realizing more and more that I feel if I know I've done a good job on something and I've helped someone, but they didn't necessarily notice it, I'm almost
Yeah.
happier than if they did notice it. Because when they do notice it and they mention it to me, I feel really awkward.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And so I've gone from like, I want to be a rock star to like, I don't know, whatever this is, you know? And I guess for me now too, it's kind of like trying not to lose my ambition altogether because I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah. I
Let's
guess
see
the
what
biggest
happens.
the biggest thing I guess I could say that I'm taking away from this whole thing, and by this whole thing I mean this whole discussion we're having on like church excellence and the spirit of excellence, because I'm not a big fan of the phrase. I
Yeah.
understand the meaning behind it, the idea behind it. I still don't like the phrase, but I I know where they're coming from. I get that.
Yeah. You still there? Hello, Jeff? I lost Jeff. Try this again. Sorry. Hello, Jeff. Hello, Jeff. Jeff. All right. Well, we're going to have to cancel the live broadcast for now because I cannot hear Jeff at all.
Still recording, still recording. Still recording. Still recording. Bling.